Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers. We're here every week, meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues, and we welcome back a familiar guest today.
Yes, we welcome back an old friend, Glen Mulready, the Insurance Commissioner of the state of Oklahoma. Glen is doing a grand job, and the voters obviously think so because he got reelected for another four-year term just
almost unanimously.
Well, yeah, his opposition was non-existent.
That's right.
But nevertheless, his performance has been spectacular, and we want to find out what's going on in the insurance business.
And
Right now, 6 feet can feel like a long ways away. But from 6 feet, we can still smile at each other. From our doorways and our stairways, from opposite sides of the street and opposite sides of the country. Through fear and frustrations, we can remind each other that we are still here for each other. Because we can still smile at each other. And we're not going anywhere.
Military service ran in my blood, starting from my father, which joined the Navy, on the Chickasaw side, my uncle, which served in the United States Army. I'm Benjamin Espinosa, Chief Petty Officer, United States Navy, and I'm Chickasaw. I went to the Secretary of Defense's staff at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., which ultimately led to becoming a combat support technician for Naval Special Warfare, specifically SEAL Team 10. I think to be proud and to love your tribe, to love being Chickasaw, you also have to love being American. You also have to love everything that America stands for. Equality, perseverance, professionalism, and power. I want my family to know that their father is a good person, but also feels that he has an obligation to the country and to love this nation. Anything worth having is worth dying for. The military and the country owes me nothing. I owe it everything.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers. Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Well, as we talked about in the open, our guest today is Glen Mulready, the Commissioner of Insurance in the state of Oklahoma. This is his third appearance with us, and we're really glad to get him back. We try to get him back every chance we get. He is the 13th insurance commissioner Oklahoma has ever had, and is going to be. He has just been reelected the last general election for another four-year term. He's been in the insurance business 39 going on 40 years, one way or another, and still active, very active in his duties as commissioner. He is a free market fellow, and he likes to promote competition in the insurance business, and we will talk a little bit about that. That seems to be a pretty healthy thing for the benefit of the consumer. Understanding being that the more competition, the more likely it is the consumer will get a better rate and get better service. He spent 8 years in the House of Representatives from the northeastern part of the state, the Tulsa area. And Glenn, we're really glad to have you back. Thanks very much for coming to see us.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Sure. How are things going?
Things are going well. Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot going on at the Oklahoma Insurance Department. You know, we've got about 125 dedicated employees that are helping protect consumers. That's our number one priority. Looking to grow the insurance industry in our state and bring, as you just mentioned, Kent, more competition. So things are going quite well.
Insurance business has been around a long time. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of years. Yet there's always new things. Who sits around and thinks of new things to be involved with in the insurance agencies, and that it forces you to have to oversee another new thing?
Yeah, and it is a lot to keep up with. You know, as you come up with new ideas and figuring out how to optimize creativity and advancement, yet regulate that. You know, and so you know, we're seeing a lot in the insurtech space. So
what is that?
Well, really, technology companies. In fact, you know, some of our offerings right now on individual health insurance to our consumers here in Oklahoma are formerly technology companies that have kind of moved into the health space. You never used to see that before. Health insurance space previously was companies you knew. You saw big TV ads and big names that you would recognize, and those logos you would recognize every day. But we're seeing an advancement of some smaller tech companies that are moving into that space, which again brings more choices to Oklahomans.
Let me ask you this as a general proposition. I'm sure the answer would perhaps be different when we broke it down by particular line of insurance. But do we generally in Oklahoma have an adequate number of insurance companies doing business here for our citizens?
Yeah, I'm one who always wants more, always wants more choices, and always wants more creativity and innovative products to be offered. And I don't think every state can say that, but we have built a good reputation around that sort of thinking. In the property and casualty world, we have over 100 companies offering homeowners insurance out there for Oklahomans. We have well over 100 companies that are licensed to sell auto insurance. There's a good amount of choices. Now, when I came into office, we had one health insurance company, individual health insurance company, being offered to Oklahoma consumers. Last year we had 8. It's a great opportunity for choices. Now they're not across. What
created that explosion in offerings?
Well, I think part of it was the Affordable Care Act when that came into play in 2010, 2011. I think there was a lot of, I don't know if fear is the right word, but concern about what that would do to the marketplace. I think things had settled enough, and that's what happened, I think, where companies were sort of chased out of that space, how we ended up with just one. But things had settled enough. You have enough years of experience to see what's happening in that lane, if you will. And so
people feel confident again to come back into that space.
Yeah, insurance companies, like anybody, they though they're in that business, they love knowns, right? They don't love unknowns, and so I think it just has created some stability that folks felt comfortable going into that. But we have to regulate those, and we still have companies that come into that space and maybe get themselves a little out over their skis, and so that's our job to kind of reel them in.
I noticed on your resume that you sponsored the original Insurance Business Transfer Act, which was passed in Oklahoma. Can you explain to our viewers what that is?
Sure. I'll try to keep it simple and not too much in the weeds, but quite proud of it. It really allows an insurance company to buy a piece of another insurance company. Previously, if you wanted to do that, you had to get every policyholder's signature on that, so those transactions never happened. But over in the UK and Europe, they've been doing that for 20 years under Part 7 transfers, they're called there. We modeled our legislation after that and rolled out our rules, and within the last 2 years, we have completed 2 transactions. Now those have to go through an independent expert, typically an actuary who is reviewing all of that. Then it comes to my office for approval, and then it goes to Oklahoma County District Court to be approved by a judge. And the whole goal of all 3 of those steps is to make sure policyholders are not materially adversely impacted. That's the language. And so for the first time in the history of the United States, we have completed 2 of those transactions here in Oklahoma.
So the role of the judge as the third stop on that trilogy is to also underline whether or not the transaction is fair to the individual policyholders. Correct.
Yeah, and it's the court that brings real finality to that transaction is finalized and done, and those policies are what we would call novated at that point.
Let me ask you about another thing that I wanted to chat with you about. You had a role in Oklahoma developing a regulatory framework for pharmacy benefit managers. What was that? Can you, first of all, remind our viewers what a pharmacy benefit manager does?
A PBM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then take it from there.
Sure. So PBMs are really the go-between company between health insurers, and that may be an insurance company whose name you might recognize, but it also may be a large employer. Here in Oklahoma City, Devon Energy. They are the health insurance plan, not an insurance company. So they would contract with a PBM to handle their prescription drug benefits. So that would mean having a network of pharmacies available, the formulary of what drugs are on what tiers, the pricing, the claims payment. That's what a PBM does. And those are we've got about 55 of them licensed here in Oklahoma, but probably 80% of that business is all within just probably 3 very large, we're talking like Fortune 10 companies that are handling that PBM business. So in 2019, the legislature passed really what it was the most aggressive legislation in the country to regulate PBMs, and that was placed with the insurance department, as it has been done in probably about 40 states now. That role lies with the insurance department. So we regulate those PBMs to make sure they're abiding by that law. And so that law said you can't charge transaction fees. That law said you have to allow any pharmacy into that network that's willing to sign your standard contract. And similar things like that. It said you can't steer towards any single pharmacy. And we had a lot of that going on, and we're still coming down hard on some of those PBMs because some of them haven't quite fallen in line on that.
Old habits are hard to break sometimes.
Yeah, and we have issued fines, substantial fines, over $3.5 million on PBMs in the 2.5 years that we've been regulating that. We have reimbursed back to pharmacies over $700,000 for some of those transaction fees and other things that they should not have been charged.
Let me stay on that, just one more follow-up. Are your powers limited to simply fining violators, or can you go farther and oust them from doing business in Oklahoma?
Yes, on that. And so we have one in particular that we fined a couple $1 million, and then they had another incident of doing the same type violation, and so we then filed for a hearing before a judge, administrative law judge, to suspend or revoke or put on probation their license. And it's a big deal. It's a big step. I mean, especially when this PBM has probably 40 to 50% market share in the state of Oklahoma.
Really?
But they've got to abide by the law.
Yeah.
It's our job to make sure they do.
Is the legislature actively working with you in your office on legislation that affects insurance in broadly?
Sure. Yeah, we have a person who does a great job for us, Ashley Scott, who's a legislative affairs person. So she's interacting with the legislature, for and against certain legislation, or trying to help them understand the depth of their what they're trying to do, and maybe some unintended consequences. So they do work closely with us, especially with Ashley. We work very closely with the legislature.
All right, we're going to take a break and get back more with the Insurance Commissioner, Glen Mulready, when we return on The Verdict.
At Whitten Burridge, we're litigators. That's all we do. All of our clients, some sort of wrong has occurred to them. We try to right that wrong. Corporate America, they have all the power. It's sort of like going against an army. I like helping the underdog. That's what gets me up out of bed every day.
Our success rate is phenomenal, but that's not all they get. We care about people.
I'm very proud of what we've been able to do for our clients, and I'm looking forward to what we're going to do in the future. There's still a lot of wrongs that need to be righted.
OU Law has a history and heritage that are unparalleled. At the University of Oklahoma College of Law, we empower our students to pursue the career of their dreams. We have the highest U.S. News ranking ever achieved by an Oklahoma law school. We are the first law school in the country to launch a college-wide digital initiative. And this year, our competition teams rank #2 in the nation. OU Law, generations of excellence, limitless possibilities.
When I came to work for the ODVA, I started realizing the opportunity to take care of veterans. It's a powerful thing when you realize that you are taking care of people that made history.
Working here is a calling. It's really, really important that they don't just come here to exist. We want to give them meaning to their lives. We try to make life happy and meaningful and fulfilled for our veterans.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers, and our guest is the Insurance Commissioner, Glen Mulready. Glen, if a consumer has a problem with an insurance company not paying off when they think they should, what recourse do they have, and does your office get involved in situations like that?
We absolutely do, and I'm so glad you asked that, Mick, because a lot of folks don't know that we have that service available. And so we have a consumer assistance area. We have folks answering phones all day, every day. They handle about 15,000 calls a year, and it could be you know, a health insurance claim that's not being paid. It could be a car wreck, a roof claim, a trip insurance, anything to do in our space. And so they could go to our website and scroll down the bottom, click on a box that says file a complaint. It's a short form, contact info, little space for narrative, and then our folks go to bat for them. And you know, we're quite successful with that. Not always, because sometimes the insurance company's right in denying a claim. But those folks know the contracts, they know our laws, and can hold the insurance company's feet to the fire on those issues.
Let me follow up on that. I have practiced law here for a long time, and on many occasions I will get a call from a prospective client that has a beef with an insurance company and want me to take care of it for them. My advice has generally been, and it's worked out well for a lot of reasons, that I tell them to call the insurance department and make a complaint about, it's not a crazy complaint, they have a viable complaint, but they'll get better service out of the insurance department than they will out of me or lawyers in general, I think, by going straight to the regulator. And that they have called, I've had clients call back and say, that worked out. They really took good care of me. So you're to be congratulated on that.
Well, yeah, thank you. And you know, one of the first things I did when I came into office, as I turned over rocks, as I like to say, and asked a lot of questions, was on this issue. And the law, when I came in, said that when we contact that insurance company, they have 30 days to get back to us. Well, that just seemed like a long time to me. Realizing, as I told my team, their first call is not to us. I mean, this is a frustration call. They're at a certain level of frustration, and we need to expedite that more. And so we surveyed the rest of the country and regionally, and indeed, we were an outlier. We gave more time than any other state in our area for those to get back to us. So we went to the legislature and had them change that law to kind of shorten that time frame, and so to hopefully help those consumers more. Again, just the point being, their first phone call isn't to us. This is a second or third, fourth, fifth conversation they're having on their issue, their problem.
Back in April, the serious storms came through the area, damaged homes and property, and took lives. How does your agency get involved when something like that happens?
Yeah, in fact, Mick, I was in Shawnee last week with Mark Gower, the head of our director of our Oklahoma Emergency Management area, and we work very closely with him. And we have someone on our team connected with that. When things reach a certain point, they're engaged in that conversation. We're at the table, the insurance department. I like to talk about us as being second responders, not first responders. We sort of come in typically really a couple weeks later when folks are having some problems with a claim or an adjuster hasn't been out to their house, because we also we regulate adjusters as well, insurance adjusters. So we're involved in that. We were down yesterday. They have these, typically after a disaster like that, they have a multi-agency resource center. So the idea is you bring together all these different agencies, you know, the Red Cross, the others, and Oklahoma Insurance Department, so folks can kind of take care of a number of things all in one spot. And so we were down there yesterday. We'll be again tomorrow out at a storm at a MARC. We call it a multi-agency resource center arrangement. So we're helping folks there, and sometimes, too, it's just facilitating. You don't think of some of the little things like, I need my prescription refilled, but if I go to a computer system in an insurance company, it may show that that's not due for a refill for another month. Well, a storm blew away my prescription drugs, and I need that quickly. So we'll assist in that as well. And then again, like I said, down the road, if they're having any issues with adjusting, getting out there, or the insurance claim, we're there to assist with our consumer assistance area.
After a year of inflation and supply chain issues, is it more likely people might be underinsured when they try to get their homes repaired? Has that been an issue?
Yeah, it is. We've experienced quite a bit of change, right, in the last couple of years, and so we always encourage folks to work with their agent to make sure they're keeping up with that. You don't want to be in a situation where you're underinsured and paying a co-insurance penalty basically because you're underinsured. Never mind if your house gets wiped out and you've got a limited amount of coverage on there. So always encourage folks to work closely with their agent to make sure that value is at the proper level.
Let's talk about agents for a minute. We've spent most of the time, as we should, talking about your interaction with the companies, but you also have regulatory power, do you not, over folks acting as insurance agents in Oklahoma. What do you try to do there?
Yeah, so we actually at the insurance department, we license over 200,000 people in our different areas. And that threw me for a loop when I first came in, because I thought, man, everybody
that threw me for a loop now.
The different areas, but also a lot of times you just don't think of folks that are live outside of Oklahoma but want to do business. So there may be an agent in California who has a couple clients in Oklahoma. Well, he needs to be licensed as a non-resident here in Oklahoma. So we license our agents, and we have continuing education. We monitor that. They have a certain number of hours they've got to take of continuing education every 2 years in order to renew their license.
Through your department?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, let me be clear. We approve the CE. Yeah. We're not doing the instructing of the CE. Yeah, so courses get submitted, and we approve those or disapprove those, or make sure they tweak those to be appropriate. But yeah, that's a big part of our role as well, is licensing, CE, and that's true of other areas we oversee, like bail bondsmen. People don't know the insurance department oversees over 500 bail bondsmen here in Oklahoma, but we license and continue education there as well.
What is the size of your annual budget, and where does the revenue come from to operate your agency?
Yeah, so we are just short of $20 million is our budget. We are what we call a non-appropriated agency, so we don't receive any money from the state of Oklahoma and the legislature in their annual budget and appropriation process. We don't take any money from them. In fact, we send up about $300 million through our office to the legislature. Now, 55% of the premium tax, which is about $150 million, goes to our public safety pensions. So our fire and police pensions, well into $150 million is coming through our office for their pension system.
Wow, that's a bargain for the citizens.
Yeah, I think so. A lot of people don't realize the volume that comes through there and what that's funding.
What does your organization, your department do to create job growth?
So we're focused on a couple of areas. Again, I'm a free market and competition. I think the free market, decreases cost, increases efficiency, promotes innovation, that sort of thing. And so we have tried to be a very responsive agency, and I think we've done a good job in my first 4 years of having a reputation nationally of being a good department to do business with. If you send in something to us, you want to offer new products in our state, we're not going to sit on that for 6 months, for a year. We're going to be responsive. And I told my team when I came in that I want us to do our due diligence. We need to dot our I's and cross our T's and check those boxes, but I want us to be known as a responsive agency, and even launched a silly campaign when I first came in of how do we get to yes? So let's do our part, but how do we get to yes?
Got about a minute left. What do people not know about your agency that you'd love for the viewers to know or to learn more about?
I think most folks don't understand the breadth of of our agency, of the department. As I just mentioned, bail bondsmen. We license and oversee over 1,100 real estate appraisers. In this role, I'm also the chairman of the Real Estate Appraisers Board. We have our monthly meeting tomorrow, actually. And then along with those insurance agents and brokers and the companies that are doing business here, we have about 70 companies that have chosen to domicile in Oklahoma that we are responsible to not only license them but oversee their financial solvency, making sure that they're making wise decisions with their money so that they are there when folks have a claim.
Is there continuing education expectations in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, in most every one of those areas, there's continuing education required to maintain your license. We want to make sure folks are staying up to date.
You're going to have to come back and finish out. And
I've got a bunch more questions that I don't have time for.
Okay, I'd love to. Thank you.
Glenn, thanks for coming on. Glen Mulready is the Insurance Commissioner for the state of Oklahoma. Kent and I'll wrap up this show when we get back.
This is the epidemic of my generation. This is my HIV. This is my Black Plague.
In the midst of one of our state's largest crises,
Oklahomans are dying from this preventable and treatable disease on a daily basis.
We believe there's hope.
That little pill will cause destruction through your whole life.
Watch the entire award-winning 9-part docuseries Killing Pain, made available by Fighting Addiction Through Education at killingpain.com.
It used to be okay in hospitals. It used to be okay in movie theaters. It was okay in classrooms, restaurants, and airplanes. But thanks to a greater understanding of the dangers, that's not okay anymore. So now that we know secondhand smoke causes lifelong health problems, why is it still okay to smoke with children in the car? Bottom line, it's not okay. Let's get serious about protecting kids. Join the fight at stopswithme.com.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
You have children coming from a different lifestyle, different mindset. You have to open your arms and really do what you have to do to have that child become a part of your family. And if it's more patience, that's what you do. Kids got to know they can trust you. And that's what we try to do with these kids.
Back at the set of the verdict, we're wrapping up the show with Insurance Commissioner Glen Mulready.
Yes, Glen was very kind to come on and gave us a lot of good information. I was startled at the relatively few number of his employees that he has to accomplish so many tasks and do it so well. I think that's a real bargain for the citizens.
Yeah, that office created in the state constitution, well over 100 years ago. And you can imagine how it has had to evolve with the 21st century today and technology. And Glen and his co-workers there are certainly to be applauded for doing such a good job. We appreciate him coming on the show. We have some website information for you on Glen's office and also this show. But that's going to do it for this week. We'll see you next time right here on The Verdict.
Good.